Welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. Hey, it's Monday. Did you get through the weekend? I did. Yes, I got through the weekend safely. Monday, September 9th, 2024. When we come back, two big things to discuss. What's all this about a pact with the Bloc Quebecois? And what's happening at this liberal retreat in Nanaimo, BC? I've got plenty to say about that this morning. Thanks for joining me. Let's get these numbers up this morning. Thank you for watching. And we got a lot to talk about.
So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need the resolve to resist.
Yes, Sasha the cat always said, please like the station, smash that like button, give us a thumbs up, check and make sure you're still subscribed. Thanks for all the support you've shown. We're headed towards 30,000 subscribers. We're going to do it. And we're going to do it in the next couple of weeks because of you. Thank you for supporting the station. I think you get something here you don't get elsewhere. And that's all of my decades of experience in journalism, which I'm sharing with you, and instead of the mainstream media. But it's such a joy to come to you here on Monday morning. The sun is out. Of course, I had Friday and Saturday off, and it was raining. We had a deluge here in Ottawa. Sun is beautiful today, and I'm working all day long. So don't know if I'll ever get to the beach again before fall comes in its full measure. Hope to, but I'm thankful for God's blessings no matter what happens. Let's face it. We're still fortunate to live in Canada, and I still think we're going to have a November election, despite what you're seeing. Look at this. Bloc Quebecois ready to extract gains for Quebec. Well, who else? In exchange for supporting Liberals. I'm going to be quite honest with you guys. The Bloc is a treasonous party. It's a traitorous party. It has no business sitting in the House of Commons because it's not there for Canada. It's there for one province, and it's there for that one province to separate. That's their very definition of treason. It's working against the country. It's working to destroy Canada. Now, you tell me, if there was an Alberta separatist, if there was a Bloc Alberta or a Bloc Western Canada, do you think they would be welcomed with the open arms that the Bloc has? Do you think for a minute that the Bloc would be pandered to the way these people are? Look at this clown of a leader. This Yves Francois Blanchette. He is a clown. This is a party that is just raring to go take your rights away for freedom of speech. Every time Blanchette gets up to talk about C-63, he says, hurrah, hurrah, Justin Trudeau. And while you're at it, make sure there's no exemption for religion under the so-called hate speech laws. And hate speech, of course, don't be deceived by that language. Hate speech means anything offensive to anybody. So if there's anything in the Bible or the Quran or the Bhagavad Gita, for that matter, that is offensive to anybody, you can't say, hey, it's part of my religion. The Bloc wants to kill that. The Bloc is not only treasonous, it's anti-free speech, it's anti-democratic, it loves euthanasia, and it loves the climate change agenda. That's what the Bloc is all about. But let me tell you a personal experience here. When I first went to the House of Commons, it was in 1999. And I was working for a wonderful MP from Calgary Northeast named Art Hanger, and often had a chance to talk to Preston Manning in the lobby of the House of Commons. And I remember Preston Manning and Art Hanger telling me on one occasion that the first thing they did when the Reform Party formed the official opposition in 1997 is to get rid of the Quebec flag that was sitting or standing right in front of the doorway to the official leader of the opposition's office on the third floor of center bloc in Parliament Hill. The first thing they did is get rid of that Quebec flag. Because you recall in 1993, the Bloc had a few more seats than the Reform Party in that election. That's the election the Conservative Party was decimated and annihilated in. Reform Party came up in the West, the Bloc came up in Quebec. Bloc had a few more seats. So Chrétien decides, well, they've got a couple more seats. They will be Her Majesty's official opposition. Her Majesty's loyal official opposition. It was a farce. The Bloc was not loyal to the Queen. The Bloc was not loyal to Her Majesty. It wasn't even loyal for Canada. It has always been a traitorous party. That's what the Bloc is all about. And I don't care if anyone is offended by my saying that. Let's call a spade a spade. That's what this party is all about. All they want is to suck Canada dry. And this is what's behind this latest overture from Blanchette to Trudeau. Yeah, we'll support you, Trudeau. Yeah, we'll support you. You bet. And we'll replace the NDP. Now, is this possible? You bet it is. Trudeau's already, if you recall, been working with the Bloc in the past as a sort of a backup plan. But will he have a formal kind of allegiance, a formal kind of pact like he did with the MP? I don't know if it's politically possible. He's already alienated so much of his caucus. And we'll get to that in about 5 minutes because they're meeting in Nanaimo, BC. The whole caucus, not just the cabinet. Some people have already asked, what the hell are they having another meeting for? Well, this time it's everybody. But do you think there's going to be any dissent shown? I doubt it very much. But do you think a pact with the Bloc would sell with a lot of Liberal MPs who are still loyal to Canada? I don't know. I don't think so. So is it possible? Of course it is. Is it likely or probable? I don't think so. The Bloc does have enough seats. It has more seats than the NDP to prop up the Trudeau government. In fact, somebody asked me that in church yesterday, and I totally forgot that the Bloc does, in fact, have enough seats to prop up the Liberal government. I was completely wrong. I said, no, because I was thinking, of course, they don't have enough seats to vote with the Conservatives to vote down the Liberals, but they have enough seats to prop up the Liberals. Yes, they do, given the amount of seats right now. So that is potentially could happen here, but I don't think so. I really don't think there's going to be a form, but Trudeau continues to shock, surprise, and amaze me. Let's have a look at some of this here. I've got a few slides I wanted to show you. Yeah, this is fascinating. This is absolutely fascinating. You say, who the hell is Talib Noor Hamad? Noor Hamid, sorry. And I mean no insult to his name here. This is a parliamentary secretary to the heritage minister. And what's the background here? Let's see. This is him saying your paper, meaning the Toronto Sun, wouldn't be in business if it were not for the subsidies that the government that you hate put in place. The same subsidies your Trump adjacent foreign hedge fund owners gladly take to pay your salary. So this guy is taunting the Toronto Sun, saying, hey, you're getting money from the Trudeau government. You're being subsidized by the Trudeau government. Don't criticize. Talib Noor Mohammed, parliamentary secretary to the heritage minister. Okay, so Terry Newman responds, okay, you win. You pay my salary. I'll stop criticizing your government now. Please don't fire me. Joe Warmington of Toronto Sun chimes in. But I don't work for you or answer to you. You work for us and answer to us. So look how arrogant the Liberals are getting. They're waving it in their face. And Melissa Lantsman, the Conservative MP from Toronto, notes this. She's the deputy leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. She's Liberal MP, says media is not allowed to criticize the government because his boss paid them not to. He'll have a hissy fit online if you don't write what he wants you to write. No big deal. Everything is fine. That's the state of this government. I saw a comment earlier. I'm gonna have a look at these comments because I found this fascinating. How we started off here. Canada has just become an insane asylum. Robin Kleinstuber. You bet, Robin. We are living in an asylum. And this is the kind of crazy talk from the Liberal MPs now. Don't you dare criticize this government because we're paying subsidies so you don't have a right. And good for Joel Warmington. You know who I recently saw at the Freedom Convoy trial here in Ottawa? He was in town, actually on vacation. He came in to wish his best to Chris Barber and Tamara Leach and all the folks who were out there supporting the Freedom Convoy and freedom in general in Canada. So, yes, thanks for chiming in, Jill. And you're right. You're completely right. And what started it all? Terry Moomin talking about Mark Miller. This guy probably single-handedly made our country more dangerous than it's ever been because of mass migration under Mark Miller and the Trudeau government. That's what started this whole thing here. And as we see, we've got the Liberals, a parliamentary secretary, issuing what looks like a veiled threat. We'll take your money away if you can, because that's what we always say. The subsidies are all about, to keep the media in the pockets of the Trudeau government. And clearly, this illustrates that's how the Liberals feel about it too. This is all about taking freedom of the press away. Now, I am hearing a lot about proroguing, and they go back to the Bloc here. I don't think this is going to fly because there's just too many Liberal caucus members who would throw up. There's enough of them who would throw up if the Liberal Party of Canada had a formal alliance with the separatist Bloc Quebecois. I think there's still enough people in that caucus who have some sense of normalcy. Now, what would Pierre Trudeau think about this? Now, I'm no fan of Pierre Trudeau. I grew up at the kitchen table hearing about how horrible Pierre Trudeau was. Pierre Trudeau was a communist. But Pierre Trudeau at least was a federalist who really thought separatists should not be at the same table with federalists. Now, I don't believe he would have said, no, the Bloc shouldn't be sitting in the House of Commons, as I do. I don't think the Bloc should be collecting a salary from Canadian taxpayers. I don't think the Bloc should be getting a pension from Canadian taxpayers because they are nothing but worthless deadwood who are trying to take down this country. And the Bloc is a treasonous party. I'll say it again. But Pierre Trudeau at least had a sense of Canada being united in one federal nation. Justin Trudeau, I don't think, has that same respect for the country. So we'll see what happens. But I don't think this will fly. Not because Justin Trudeau wouldn't try. His leadership is so tenuous right now. It is so fragile that this could push it over the edge, and there could be a mass caucus revolt. We will see. So what's happening in Nanaimo here? Let's have
an electoral battle is underway in this Montreal riding. La Salle-Mard-Verdun has been a Liberal seat for most of the last century.
People don't like having one party in power for too long.
Some voters are looking for change in the federal by-election 1 week away.
People are not happy with the Liberals. They're not happy. And they're basically saying, I'll vote anybody but the Liberals.
The Prime Minister's name is not on the ballot, but Brent Tyler is voting like it will be.
What are the issues that are most important for you this by-election?
To get rid of Justin Trudeau.
I know we've been in government for 9 years, and I know that's a long time in Canada.
Justin Trudeau and his cabinet are expected to get an earful from some Liberal MPs this week in BC, the first caucus meeting in months, and there's a lot to talk about. Losing the Liberal stronghold of Toronto-St. Paul's in that June by-election.
This was obviously not the result we wanted.
The party's national campaign director just quit. and the NDP pulling out of a deal to prop up the government.
Trudeau's Liberals can't deliver change.
Some Liberal MPs tell CBC News they are growing restless after a tumultuous summer. Cabinet's message to an anxious caucus: focus on the main opponent.
Mr. Poilievre doesn't actually want to share his vision because it's unlikely that it's something that resonates with a lot of Canadians.
But it's the Liberal Party that's not resonating with many Canadians right now. Poll aggregator 338 Canada shows the Conservatives have a sizable lead nationwide.
Caucus will be jittery, and a lot of it will be convincing them that there is a plan to get back out of this hole that they're in and to win the next election.
The next test, the Montreal by-election, and it could be tough to pull off a win, says this poll analyst.
With the lack of enthusiasm behind the Liberals right now, their sagging numbers in Quebec, but also across the country, it is the kind of riding that could be up for grabs.
So, JP, what are Liberal MPs saying about the high-stakes week ahead?
Yeah, Ian, Liberal MPs aren't saying much publicly, but based on the conversations we've been having, we know there's a lot of discontent. Privately, there's grumbling about the Prime Minister and the party's direction. Some MPs are eager to move on from the Trudeau era. They're just not comfortable saying that on the record. That may change after the Montreal by-election if the Liberals lose another ruby red seat like LaSalle-Mart-Verdun next Monday. We might see some MPs, maybe even some cabinet ministers, speaking more freely about the future and whether it's time for Trudeau to step aside after 9 years at the top. Ian?
JP Tasker in Ottawa.
Yeah, well, it's high time he steps aside. It's a little more now. It's ironic to me that they're meeting in Nanaimo, BC. Now, why do I know Nanaimo? Because I was the base public affairs officer at CFB Comox for 6 years, which is my hometown. I was born in Comox. And Nanaimo at that time was about an hour and a half away because they finally built a highway where you could go at a normal speed. And I used to go to Nanaimo all the time. That's, of course, where you catch the BC ferry to go to Vancouver. You can go to Victoria, but it's a lot closer to go to Nanaimo if you're on the North Island. And so I used to go down, and in those days, it was becoming the heroin capital of BC. Nanaimo is virtually unrecognizable. I haven't been back there in quite a few years. But from what I understand from my friends who are out there, friends and family, it is a drug haven. It is insane. It is emblematic of the so-called safe supply idiocy pushed by the insane communist BC government. And it's also indicative of Justin Trudeau's desire to have addiction perpetuation sites all across the country, dotting Canada at every major Canadian city so people can shoot up heroin without thinking they're going to get arrested for it. And perpetuating the myth that heroin is somehow safe if there's a nurse standing by. That addicts are going to be safe if they shoot up in an addiction site one night and the next night they won't be there, but they could potentially overdose at home. The plan is stupid, but Nanaimo is emblematic of that stupidity. So that's where the Liberal Party is meeting for their caucus retreat, in the land of so-called safe supply drugs, in the land of the insanity that fuels our drug addiction in this country, that the government is fueling, provincially in BC and federally by the Trudeau Liberals, who think there's such a thing as harm reduction, that if you throw drugs at people, that's somehow reducing their harm. But so they're meeting in the night. Let's hear what Tommy Mulcair has to say about this. I find this very fascinating about this retreat.
Tom Mulcair, CTV News political commentator and former NDP leader. Tom, good to see you as always.
Good to be with you, Renee.
Now, the Prime Minister will be in British Columbia tomorrow with MPs, looking for him to finally reveal his plan to address these dismal polling numbers that the party has endured for months. What do you think the plan is here?
Well, I think that one of the things he's trying to do is change the channel a little bit. We know that Mark Carney is one of those people who's been waiting in the wings for a tap on the shoulders if Trudeau decides to step down. So Trudeau's trying to get ahead of that. He's bringing Carney into the caucus meeting, which is clever. Carney got beat up quite a bit for not having run for Trudeau in the 2021 election. You might recall there was a phase where all of the Liberal pundits and people who were their mouthpieces on the air were every time that his name came up, he said, yeah, but when we asked him to run, he didn't. So Carney's playing it smart as well. He's showing his availability. He's going into the caucus meeting. As for Trudeau himself,
I'm not sure it's very smart in terms of Trudeau, because this guy could actually take his job away very, very quickly. But what would that mean? We have another globalist in charge of the Liberal Party and consequently would be in charge of Canada. And that would be just as catastrophic as having Justin Trudeau continue for another year. So this is no option. But Mark Carney, yeah, he's clever. He is smart. He's globalist smart. And he knows what he needs to do to seize power. Look what happened in the United States. Kamala Harris, nobody even voted for her. There wasn't a single delegate at the Democratic convention that voted for her. She didn't go through a single primary. She stole the nomination. She took the nomination away from Joe Biden, who was forced out by the party bosses, by the party donors, by people like Nancy Pelosi. He admitted it. He's admitted, yeah, he was forced out by Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and the other people. You think it can happen to Justin Trudeau? You bet it can. He can be forced out too by the Liberal Party bosses, the donors, the backroom people, and they can say, hey, Mark Carney's the answer. Canadians will love Mark Carney. He's such a smart guy. Not going to happen, though.
I think that your setup was pitch perfect. I don't think there's any better way to say it, Renee. Trudeau is in trouble with his own caucus. He knows that. He's in trouble in the polls. He knows that. The fact that Singh walked out this week is no help. And there are two by-elections coming up on Monday, the 16th, the same day Parliament goes back. And those could have a determining effect on Trudeau's future. One of them, in Winnipeg, the Liberals aren't in. It's basically a fight between the Conservatives and the NDP. NDP has a strong candidate. The Conservatives are throwing everything they can at it. They'd love to grab it. They have a chance of doing that. In Montreal, that's going to be the exciting one. From all the information I'm getting, it's split essentially 30-30-30 amongst the Liberals, the Bloc Quebecois, and the NDP. Conservatives, again, are not in that one. They're at about 10% in the door-to-door polling. So if Trudeau were to lose that one, it's a safe Liberal seat. It was David Lametti, the Attorney General's seat. If he loses that one, Renee, that will be huge trouble for Trudeau. So this is all against the backdrop of a very nervous caucus. And you know what? When you're a leader of a party, I talked to you a bit about that. You don't like it when your caucus is nervous. You like to have them buoyed up a bit, feeling good. Nobody, people are saying very open things. Wayne Long, MP, saying, look, we have no chance of defeating Poilievre if Trudeau stays as leader. So that's pretty tough stuff to hear from somebody who was a Liberal MP.
Mm-hmm. We have no chance of defeating Pierre Poilievre if Justin Trudeau stays on as leader. This is what Liberal MPs and former MPs are saying. What are they really saying behind the scenes? You can bet we're not hearing any of it. We're not hearing any of the real discontent. They're keeping their mouths shut when the cameras are on.
And as you mentioned, a lot of people see former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney as a potential successor to Trudeau. Is there a chance he's not just there to help with a financial plan, Tom?
Well, I think a little bit like we were saying before, he's doing it a bit for the party and a bit to help Trudeau, because it does help Trudeau that he's there and it gets a little bit of pressure and changes the topic a bit. But at the same time, he's doing something for himself because he's got to show himself to be a Liberal loyalist first and foremost. This is one extremely capable guy. He's very, very smart. I hear some people try to dismiss him, saying, oh, he'd be like Ignatieff because he's never been in politics before. That'd be a serious mistake to compare Mark Carney to Michael Ignatieff, two totally different beasts. This guy grew up in the Northwest Territories, very humble roots, went on to the most amazing jobs. And even today, Renee, he's got a top job at the United Nations on climate change and finance. So, this guy is the real deal in terms of these very important jobs that he's had over the years. And the Liberals, are giving him a serious...
Yeah, fighting for climate change. That's what he's doing, fighting for the globalist United Nations. He's the climate change ambassador. Do you want a clown like this leading Canada?
Look, there are people in cabinet who are top-notch, think Chrystia Freeland, but every time anybody would talk to them in a debate or if they were trying to become the leader, they'd have to wear every single bad decision of Justin Trudeau. So I think that, the idea of freshness comes with Carney, and we'll see what type of reception he receives. I don't know if the cameras are going to be allowed to be there when Carney is introduced, but I'd love to see what type of applause he gets from the caucus.
Is there a chance that Trudeau steps down at this meeting? Is there a chance he steps down ever?
Well, when you saw this week when nobody saw the Jagmeet Singh's move coming, except Poilievre, who actually asked for it. But, that sometimes these things do come out of the blue. With the return of Parliament, there is such thing as, holding back. You can prorogue Parliament. We went through that famously with Harper. And then that would reset the schedule. It would dump a bunch of legislation. So I'm not sure he'd want to do that because there are things in there that Trudeau quite finds reasonably important for his future.
And then what would that be? The Online Harms Act is coming up for a second reading this fall. That's probably the primary reason Justin Trudeau will not prorogue Parliament. We're seeing some crazy speculation out there that proroguing is now a foregone conclusion. It is not. Justin Trudeau would lose the Online Harms Act if he prorogues Parliament. He would have to start from square one again with the censorship legislation. And I can bet you he is not going to do that. He is not going to prorogue. And anybody who's out there saying that is not understanding what makes Justin Trudeau tick.
For his legacy, but will Trudeau step down at some point? I still think that that's a real possibility. He's got another career ahead of him. There's tons of things that he could do in the private sector. This guy would be, a command top dog.
Yeah, he'd be an excellent dog catcher. That's about all I can say in terms of his abilities. This has been the most worthless prime minister we've ever had in the history of Canada. I want to read this comment from Diane Lowe. I don't get it. Why does the Bloc get to form a federal party for just one province when the rest of the country can't even vote for them? That's exactly my point, Diane. What in the hell is the Bloc Quebecois doing in the House of Commons? They're not there to represent Canadians. They're only there to represent one province and for that one province to separate from Canada. It makes absolutely no sense. They should be getting paid to do that and getting a pension, a fat government pension, taxpayer subsidized, taxpayer paid for doing that, for trying to break up the country. It's insane. It always has been insane. I've said that from day one. The Bloc has no business being there. And I'll say it again. I don't care who it offends. Going to be an exciting week. Million-person march is coming up. I want to advertise this again. And this is, of course, the annual now. March is going to be every year. It's going to be on September 20th. This year it's September 20th. It's Friday, a week from this Friday. Yeah, oh my God, it's coming up fast, isn't it? And this is going to be a show of religious unity between Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, everybody who cares about parental rights and the fact that their children should not have to be exposed to the gender ideology in the classroom. That parents should know if their children change their pronouns. That 10-year-olds should not be having sex change operations. That's happening September 20th. I'm having the organizer on the show again tomorrow, Camille El-Sheikh, who has done a bang-up job at making sure this march is about gender ideology and not other issues. It's not about foreign policy. It's not about foreign wars. This march is about gender ideology and parental rights. And he's keeping it that way. And Camille will be on the show tomorrow. Please join me for that. Thank you for watching today. And thank you for your comments. I wish I could put more. I'm going to put this one up here. If this happens, Canada is done. Yeah, if there's a union between the Trudeau Liberals and the Bloc, there is no Canada. Thank you for your words and your participation today. God bless you. I'll be back again tomorrow with all the news that you need to know.